Tell everyone you're watching Road to the Draft. Nat Edwards and Cal Toomey coming to you from hotel quarantine. How are you, Cal?
I'm good, thanks, Nat. I'm in hotel quarantine in Perth, enjoying it. Still keeping an eye on the draft, though, because with every day we get closer to November and seeing who might be the pick number one. So I thought it was a good chance now to go through these top contenders.
Well, that's the thing. We've been talking about some of the top prospects over the last couple of weeks, but we haven't talked about the elite two that sit right up the top. And we might as well talk about Nick Daicos. Of course, we know that Collingwood is going to have first dibs on him. He is the best player in this year's draft pool, though.
Yeah, I've ranked him at number one in my Phantom Form guide throughout this year, and it's been based on performance, Nat. He has just been outstanding since the start of the year, right through to his final game, which was played for Vic Metro against Vic Country, where he had 41 disposals and kicked 2 goals. And that will be the last game he plays because of the COVID restrictions and an outbreak in Victoria. But what a year it's been. And he started his year close to best on ground for Collingwood's VFL side in a practice game. That was the first game he played in 18 months. That was against VFL players, AFL listed players. Went on to average 36 disposals and 2 goals a game for the Oakley Chargers. Showed he was an absolute elite level player at that particular level, at under-19s level, but showed he was too good for that level. So he's ready for the step up. Went up another level to play for Vic Metro against Vic Country and had one of the most outstanding displays you'll see from a draftee. So yeah, he's a midfielder with absolute class and poise. He's damaging by foot. He kicks goals. His possessions are all impact. I think he's hard to work out who he plays like because he is a little bit unique. There's a lot of Josh Daicos about him. Clearly there's some elements there of the family name. But I think he's a little bit of a shorter Marcus Bontempelli. He glides around, doesn't get caught. He's so creative. His running patterns are elite and his work rate to outnumber at the contest just is massive for someone his age at 18. He reads the game as well as any draftee I've seen. So yeah, he warrants the number one pick if he gets it. Now the bid will have to come because, as you say, he's a Collingwood father-son selection. He's nominated them officially. He's joined them on a 4-year deal. So that's locked in. They're going to match wherever the bid comes. The most fascinating bit now will be if it does come at number one.
Do you think North Melbourne, if you were in their shoes, would you bid?
Look, I've always been anti-bidding at number one. I know it happened last year with Jamara Ugle-Hagan and the Crows. They made that bid. They took Riley Thilthorpe with the next selection. It's all worked out well for all parties there. But I still think that if you have the number one pick, it still holds an extra level of fondness for your supporters, for your club, for your image, for the player himself. So personally, I'd take it to the draft and go and grab who I think is the best player, who I know I'm going to get and receive and join our club rather than push them down a peg. But I can see both sides of it, and Collingwood has committed to him. So they know that if they do place the bid, it's going to be matched automatically.
Well, he is a superb talent, and I can't wait to see him work his magic at AFL level in 2022. So if you are North Melbourne and you have that number one pick and you don't decide to do a bid on Nick Daicos, you're probably looking at Jason Horne Francis, who, the milkman, we've nicknamed him. We had him on our Road to the Draft podcast. He was our first guest for 2021. He is just an outstanding player playing senior footy against men in the sample.
Yeah, the milkman, not just because he delivers, but also he does work for a dairy. So that's the sort of context behind the nickname there. Look, he's a different player to Nick. We talk about these players right at the very top of the draft pool, and what Nick does so well is different to what Jason Horne Francis does so well. He's all power, his aggression, his physicality. As you say, he stood up to bigger and stronger opponents all season at league level for South Adelaide and done it with aplomb. We saw the tackle go viral where he slam tackled Darcy Fogarty from the Crows to the ground in such a big tackle there. So yeah, he idolises Nat Fyfe, and there's a bit of him in the way he floats for the ball across half forward and goes through his grabs in the air. There's an aerial presence. He's not a huge ball winner. He's averaged about 16 disposals at Sanford League level this year, but he does make them hurt. So he kicked 3 goals from 22 disposals against Central District about a month ago. And on the weekend just gone, he had a really strong game against West Adelaide with 24 disposals and a goal. That Nat came after a pretty quiet game for South Australia in the opening under-19 championships where he had 12 touches and kicked a goal. So he was good to bounce back from that and show his quality and character. Look, I think he'll start his career as maybe an Isaac Heaney type of half forward, that guy who's good in the air, so courageous and tough and brutally strong when the ball's up for grabs with stints in the midfield. Eventually I see him being a full-time midfielder, and if it is at North Melbourne, who have the first option to grab him, then he would add to their midfield because he brings something different to what they've got in Luke Davies-Uniacke and Tyron Thomas and Jai Timken, and these type of players, Will Phillips and Tom Powell. He's a different type of midfielder altogether and someone who's ultra exciting.
Yeah, if I was a Roos fan, I would be very, very happy indeed. Two very different players, but both emerging stars of our game. Can't wait to see where they end up next year. Just before we let you go, the championships, what is happening? Because COVID has just thrown it all apart again.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? We haven't get to see as many players as we would have liked and hoped to have seen across this year because of the different outbreaks and restrictions across the country. Now, Victorian players won't be taking part in the championships at all, which is a big shame. We mentioned Nick Daicos. He's like many other Victorian players whose seasons are now officially over. But from a South Australian and West Australian perspective, hopefully we see another game between those sides in grand final week. We know the grand final is here in Perth in a couple of weeks' time, and hopefully that will be a part of that week in the lead up to the game and potentially, really close to that game. So fingers crossed we get to see that one, because players like Jason Horne-Francis will go up against Neil Erasmus, and we'll see Jai Amos play and Arlo Draper, Matt Roberts from South Australia. So there's some good talent across these both states, and hopefully we get another good game of them together in grand final week.
Yeah, certainly. All right. For all of your draft news, make sure you keep clicking back to afl.com.au and the AFL Live app. We'll see you soon with another episode of Road to the Draft next week.